Welcome back to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We couldn't do these without the incredible support of our sponsors, and we want to start by saying thank you to all of them. First, thanks to our diamond sponsor, Varsity Brands, including BSN, Varsity Spirit, and Herff Jones. Varsity Brands, elevating student experiences in sport, spirit, and achievement. We also want to thank our platinum sponsors, including Vital Signs, bring student achievements to life. Gipper, sports graphics made incredibly simple. Ephesus Lighting, innovating a brighter future at every level. Gilman Gear, always a step ahead. Camp Mobile, where leaders communicate better. And Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing. Thanks to all of our great sponsors. Welcome back, everyone, to another edition of the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest today is a good friend, Jackie Randall. Jackie is a certified athletic administrator, and she is the athletic director at Elk Grove High School in Elk Grove Village, Illinois. She's also very active at the national level. She's a member of the NIAAA Mentoring Committee, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But Jackie, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Jake. I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, no, very excited to hear what's going on at your school and also with the new committee. So let's go and get started. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, where you went to college, and maybe how your love of sports led to a career in athletic administration.
Absolutely. Well, going way back, I grew up in Libertyville, Illinois, and my dad was a kind of a career coach at a local high school. So a neighboring high school. He coached baseball as well as basketball, and their basketball team was good. So I was really kind of a gym rat growing up, hanging around the cheerleaders as well as the basketball teams. And I got to go on many, holiday tournament weekends to Pontiac, Illinois. People will know that tournament, as well as, downstate with the team numerous times. And I think that really set in my mind some expectation of how I want to impact others. And I knew if I got into education, that was something I was going to want to do. And so it's kind of funny, talking to my parents about it, they never would have predicted that both myself as well as my brother would be in sports administration. He actually works for the Tennessee Titans, but it's just it's funny how it turned out that way. So I went to Libertyville High School, and I really dabbled in a bunch of different sports. I played travel soccer growing up, but I was in the band, and so I was a cheerleader. I was really kind of pretty well-rounded. And then I went to the University of Iowa. I wanted that Big Ten experience and make sure that I was able to be involved in athletics, not only as like an intramural participant, but in a rah-rah sense. And I've heard that when you grow up in the Midwest, it's your goal to get to a Big Ten school. So just because of all the the wonderful aspects of the education, but the co-curriculars as well. And so from there, I ended up at Grant Community High School as an English teacher, as well as a girls' head track and field coach. And so I coached track there for 8 years, and I left Grant to become the girls' athletic director at Elk Grove. And so I've been at Elk Grove in the AD role for 5 years. And then this past summer, I was promoted to the assistant principal of athletics, activities, and music. So really in charge of all the co-curriculars then. So it's interesting how my own experience in co-curriculars has really come full circle now, having a foot in the athletic world as well as the music world, which I've really enjoyed.
Oh, that's very cool. I'm a few years older than you, but I think that plays out in my role as an AD. back 100 years ago when I was in high school, we did 3 sports. I mean, that's what you did. When I got to college, I, did 2, but I was in, a number of, dramatic productions and student government. So no, I think it's just great that you are and that we are, preaching this um, multiple experience for our kids, because it does, pay off in a big way down the road.
Absolutely.
Talk a little bit about that Big Ten experience. What are some of those exciting things you look back on now from your days as at Iowa?
Well, I lived on the west side of the river, which I think when I first got placed there, I was like, because Burge was such an appeal. If you go to Iowa, you know these things. But it turns out I was on like the athletic side of campus, which was really great to be able to like roll out of bed and head to a football game. And really just being on that more professional side. So like that's where the hospital is and some of the more professional schools are. So that was really a great experience. Yeah, Iowa was awesome for me. And now I have connections at Northwestern and still have that Big Ten kind of connect, and being able to see kind of their influence in the Chicago suburbs and their wonderful facilities over there has been really fun as well.
No, no, that's it's always great to hear those stories. Um, Jackie, in our profession, we always talk about the importance of leadership and especially mentorship. So I'm curious, who were some of your mentors? I can guess maybe 1 or 2, but who are some of your mentors, like coaches or teachers growing up, or maybe people you've worked with or worked for as an AD? The expression I always use is I still hear those voices in my head when I'm talking to a coach or a parent or a kid. So whose voice do you still hear?
um, of course hear my father's voice, and I still call him for advice and talk to him almost every day. So that's definitely there. And he, ironically, was a school psychologist. So there's lots of Phil Jackson references and that. So he helps me kind of with that element. But I would have to also say my predecessor here. So Bob Murphy was the assistant principal prior to me. And he was a real champion for women in athletics, as well as he was, we worked well together because we're not exactly the same. We're more complementary. And so when I struggle with things that maybe aren't my strengths or my gift set, I think of him and hearing things that he said that maybe he was better at. And I'm like, okay, I can go, that's a starting point, and then I'm going to make it Jackie. You know what I mean? So like really listening to advice from him or how he did things, but then also make it my own, but have, his advice and his guidance to fall back on.
No, and again, that's just so cool to hear how, the people that have, helped get us started, they're still there with us.
Right.
Great reminder we didn't get here by ourselves. Um, Talk a little bit about that transition period from the teacher coach role to the athletic director role, and then maybe going from that new AD at your first school to the seasoned AD at Elk Grove. How
Right.
did that transition occur?
Well, it's kind of funny. I never I knew I wanted to be involved in co-curriculars, but I never set out to be an AD. I've always admired people like in 3rd grade, like I'm going to be a doctor, and that's what they do, have that clarity. I never really had that. So when I was going for my administrative certificate, I was like, well, I want leadership training. I want to get back in the classroom. I don't know where I want this to go, but I'm just gonna, kind of trust my gut here and step into that. And so I did. And it was interesting as I was an English teacher and a coach and seeing job descriptions come up. I knew I didn't really want to be in curriculum, so I didn't want to be a dean. And then this athletic director opened up, and I'm like, well, this is what fits my skill set the best. And oddly enough, the English teacher in me really helps. Like in this role, you don't realize how much writing you do and how much like communication is essential. And so it's really helped me just having the strength in that and just structure. as a teacher, it's really important to have structure. Like that's definitely transferable skills into this athletic director role. And then, as you know, going from a coach to an administrator, you see things a lot differently. I mean, it's imperative, I think, for ADs to be a coach of a program, a head coach, because it really, it takes a lot to succeed and to support not only your student athletes and the community, but your assistant coaches, and really being able to manage all of that. And then moving to the AD role and just seeing it from a new lens, and really being able to advocate for all your programs, not just one as you were as a coach, and really try and see it from that way to make sure that everybody is feeling your support, but also that it works well together, and that people can work collaboratively for, a better good.
Yeah, you got to have that global perspective as an AD. Yeah, you have to take off those blinders. I'm so glad you mentioned that, communication component. You said that it kind of fit your skill set. I think nowadays in the last, let's say 5 or even more years, I mean, that's become the job. It is communication, whether it's being able to express yourself verbally, or putting something out, even the simplest of things in a tweet or a memo. I'll see athletic directors, young and old, that haven't quite developed that tool, and sometimes it's almost cringeworthy, when you see something that was put out there for publication. So, yeah, with your background of sports as well as academics, the English major, I think that is. I don't want to say it's the perfect fit. I think it's the fit, for someone who wants to advance in this career. So well done. Let's go and talk about that advancement a little bit. You're a CAA. You become very active now at the national level. We've got some young ADs that listen to the podcast. So share with them how that got started. You went from coach and now you're an AD. How'd you get involved with your state organization, and then that leading to the national?
Yeah, well, I've always, looked to be just like a lifelong learner, and this was like an automatic fit. When I moved into the AD role, you have to be able to bolster your own experience with something, and so it was important for me to make connections, and then also to find a platform where I can learn about this stuff. This is such a specific job that you can't just, take a course at a community college, or even some of these classes that our own district provides. They oftentimes were not relevant to my job, and so it was really important for me to find a network and a place that I could better myself. And so those were two automatics, and it also was great. I mean, Elk Grove is very supportive of sending us to the national conference as well as our local conferences. So that was something that I hadn't experienced either. And I also encourage my coaches, if they can ever make a national conference for their coaches association, because talk about an injection of passion into what you do. And just, that's something that I always feel energized when I'm around people like-minded as I am. And so it's really not only an education piece, a networking piece, but it's also like a piece of self-care. You're really being able to talk to people that are in the trenches with you every day, and they just get it. And so sometimes you can get past some of the other things that maybe other types of administrators, they don't have a similar experience to you. So that was really something that I wanted to be a part of. Additionally, as you know, I've been an advocate for women in sport, and I knew that this was going to be an avenue that I could help other females find ways and really start to see female ADs in more numbers. In Illinois, we're probably pretty close to 10% of the ADs in the state. And I think nationally we're about 14% overall, at least that participate in the NIAAA. So it's been a passion of mine as a way to, get involved, be that person that others can look up to, and really find ways to support females and other underrepresented folk.
No, absolutely. Let's go and take that one step further. The NIAAA has a number of committees. I've had the pleasure and honor of serving as the vice chair for certification for several years, actually rolling off. But the newest NIAAA committee is the mentoring committee, and you're a member of that. So, just real quickly, how'd you get involved? How'd you become a member? And then what do you see your role and the committee's role moving forward?
To be honest with you, I really don't know how I became a member. I think probably because I uh, may or may not have blasted off some emails to Mike Blackburn about some things I was unhappy about, and he's like, you know what, you got to put your money where your mouth is, right, and get involved. And I was like, that's okay. I appreciate that. I get that, And so I was asked to participate, and I've had a really great time. Mike Elson is quite the leader and somebody that I look up to, and I've just really enjoyed. We've talked. I think like the baseline of meetings is quarterly for some of these committees, and we've been meeting monthly in order to really get after it and create some framework for mentoring nationally, as well as support the state mentoring programs. As you know, it's important to make sure that our retention in new IDs is good, but as well as like creating, a pathway for female and male coaches to be able to get into this role and sustain this role. So being able to be a part of that and really work collaboratively with some other great ADs has been a real pleasure. I was really stoked. Mike intentionally put 3 women in charge of the subcommittees on the mentor committee, which was really amazing. And I thought that was just a sign of his leadership and what a way for him to raise voices in the mentoring committee and put females in a place of power, which is awesome. So I've had a great experience so far. I didn't realize that this is going to be a 6-year commitment, so I'm really going to know these people well when we're done with this.
Well, I can tell you are off to a great start. I did not have a chance to attend the virtual session that your committee presented, but our state director here in Florida, our state director of mentoring, Dan Como, who coincidentally is my, you'd have to say, NIAAA mentor. He got me involved with our state association and ultimately the national association 12 years ago. And he's a retired AD. He's still in charge of our mentoring here in Florida. And he does a super job. He came out of that committee presentation that you guys put on. I've not seen him that fired up, and he is a fired up guy. So he is ready to go. So great job with that workshop. And you're probably going to be getting emails from him down the road.
Absolutely.
Let's go and talk about Elk Grove. One of the things we pride ourselves about this particular podcast is sharing best practices. And you're certainly an experienced AD, and you've had some good success there. What are some things that you're particularly proud of at Elk Grove, either initiatives that you may have developed or even just things that your coaches and department do? What's something that you feel your coaches just hit it out of the park? We do this better than anybody in Illinois or better than anybody in the country. What's some of your best practices?
Yeah. So Elk Grove is a great place, and I'm privileged to say that I have a core group of young, hungry coaches that are really willing to like get after it and really create a vision for some excellence here, which I feel fortunate because I know that that's not always the case. And so another thing about Elk Grove that is special and is just that we have a pretty diverse clientele. We're a minority majority school, and we get about 500 kids from some trailer parks and mobile homes in the area. And we kind of split from Elk Grove into Des Plaines, Illinois. And some of those kids have never had access to a park district. And so some of them are coming into Elk Grove not having a lot of structured, sports play prior to this. And so we really want to offer an experience that will be for someone that's really starting a sport or activity all the way up to someone that's really taken it to the next level and going to play collegiate sports. And so that's really our goal, is to create an opportunity and also some excellence there. And so we have a few programs in place in order to support that. We have a triple threat program, like you had kind of mentioned, encouraging kids to be involved in 3 sports. And that's done very well. We have good numbers participating. And so it's really now my charge to be able to not only maintain that, but to raise the level of excellence. And I really find that I think that what drives that is strength and strength training. And so what we have done is created a athlete only PE class. And so it's offered to all athletes, and it really focuses on strength training and the core Olympic lifts. And so our coaches and PE teachers teach this class. We have 8 sections going a day. So it's a lot. We've had a lot of buy-in, but we've really taken away the strength training piece from some of the other programs. So we're all doing it collectively. And so it was a struggle at first to get everybody on board, because some coaches really hold that dearly as part of their program. But through articulating why this is good for Elk Grove, we've really been able to create this pretty awesome program where kids from every level and every demographic and every gender and every sport are working out together in a class in order really to change the culture of sport here at Elk Grove. And so it's been a really great experience. And I think exposing student athletes to strength training probably earlier and in school, versus, really relying on the coach to do it after school during practice, where you're taking away from more of like the sports specific skills, or relying on families to have to go outside in order to supplement what we're doing. So, I really wanted to create it as something that, an equalizer, and really something that's going to put us above and beyond some of our competitors.
I couldn't agree more with everything that you just said. We're very blessed at my school. We're a private school, so a little bit smaller population, but we've got a full-time strength coach, and we do athletic strength training throughout the day, boys, girls, all teams. It's not a football program. It's not a lacrosse program, although some of our teams end up signing up for PE collectively, but just beyond the sports improvement component, just the self-esteem, the confidence, again, for boys and girls, you can't put a price tag on that. And, we were very fortunate 2 years ago, we were able to refurbish our weight room. We had a pretty good weight room. Now we've got the best weight room in the county, public or private. And you can see the pride that those kids have when they walk in, and you see the performance on the field too. So great job. I think that would be a great workshop for you next year. I'm putting stuff on your plate already. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go and talk about COVID.
Sure.
And to our listeners, we're recording this on December 18th. So hopefully by the time you're listening to this, there's been some positive changes. But Jackie, what's happening right now in Iowa, or excuse me, in Illinois and in Elk Grove, as far as return to school academics, as well as return to play athletics? What's going on in Illinois?
Right now, our district is on an adaptive pause until mid-January. And I was on a call with the IHSA and the IADA yesterday, just trying to talk about kind of where we go from here. And so it's really kind of unknown, because we are at the mercy of the risk levels dictated by the governor, And so what we're doing, I think, is just kind of waiting in the wings and putting together plan A, plan B, plan C, if and when this starts up again. We really were just talking generally nothing is decided, but like, what will work best for our schools? Is it best to shorten seasons but get them all in? Is it best to overlap seasons? And what's going to be the best for our coaches, our kids, and our schools? So that's really where we're at. We're really trying to offer an experience to everybody. I just am unsure if that'll happen.
What's the stance or the activity level? You mentioned that you had made some phone calls, but your state activities association, the athletic directors association, are they, working for a return to play, or is it, I'm exaggerating here, just throw your hands up and resignation waiting for the governor to make a new statement?
Oh no, they're working for it. I mean, they've been really trying to be communicative with the IHSA, or I'm sorry, the IADA and other ADs, as well as the state government. And I just think it's difficult because they are an independent organization, and the government just has a lot on their plate right now. So it's hard for them to prioritize athletics in the conversation. But I think with some of the studies coming out on mental health and the status of where our student athletes and kids are at these days, that maybe we will get some more traction and get back to at least some lower risk sports towards the end of January, hopefully.
All right. Well, best of luck with that. It must be frustrating to, be adjacent to some states that are, going full participation, and, you got the brakes on there. Hopefully, like I said, by the time this airs in February, you'll have some better news. Another question we've been asking our athletic directors the last few months we've been doing these has to do with this idea of, social awareness, social justice, if you will. And so I've been phrasing the question like this, what are some things that we can do as athletic directors? What can we do better with our kids, our coaches, our community in this area of, social awareness?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think one thing we can do is just educate ourselves, right? Make sure that, we are interacting with each other and interacting with people that don't always look like us, and are making sure that we are educated leaders. And then we can help support some of our programs and our coaches do the same thing for our student athletes, whether that's, bringing in outside speakers to speak to our coaches, whether that's a book study, whether that's just meeting and talking. Our district has done quite a bit of work with equity this past year, so we're doing that as a district, but I think it is an opportunity to work with your coaches and to work within athletics to see how that kind of dictates and plays out on the field and the pool on the court, right? As you know, the sports world is a microcosm of society, and it's reflective of what's going on around us. So we need to be really thoughtful and intentional of how that plays out and how we can have an impact for the better.
No, absolutely. And again, I would say that, in our world, our sports world, we probably do a better job of this than society. But again, the idea is, how can we get better? So thanks for sharing that. Let's lighten things up here a little bit. Another one of my questions is, what's your favorite part of the job? And as I've mentioned on some of the recent podcasts, after the first 30 or 40 interviews, the answer was always the same. Oh, it's the kids. And it should be the kids. But acknowledging that you love your kids. What's some of the favorite things about being the athletic director at Elk Grove?
Well, let's be honest. I mean, I get to watch sports for 90% of my job, right? That's pretty awesome. But I think something that I really appreciate that I didn't necessarily realize until I was, 6 months into the job is how great it is to be a part of so many different sports. And I think that that's why I don't miss coaching as much as I thought I was going to. Oh, how can I step away from track? But now I get to go and be a part of water polo, which is something that I never would have been able to we didn't even have a pool at the other school. Being able to see and learn the nuances of some of these different sports has been awesome. And so I've just been really, really enjoying that and really getting to know things that I just didn't know about before because I hadn't been exposed to it. And seeing, like you said, students doing kind of the same. There are kids that had never come out for gymnastics or never traditionally trained in gymnastics come out their freshman year and get on the balance beam and get after it and experience new things, and just they put on a leotard and they get out there, and like the confidence they have and just the gall to do that is really admirable. I admire that, and to see that, it kind of gets me choked up and just inspired by it. So that's something that I've really enjoyed.
Oh, I mean, I'm right there with you. It's hard to imagine sometimes. I literally, pinch myself. Geez, I'm getting paid to, go watch this practice or go to this game. And you talk about the relationships outside of your sport. I was a football coach and a track coach for years and years. But seeing the kids and the coaches and the parents of those other sports, it just, can't believe that, we get paid to do this. So
Right.
right there with you. Well, Jackie, it has really been great getting to know you here through NIAAA and now through the podcast, but we're not done yet. We always like to wrap up with what we call the athletic director's toolbox. I've already mentioned that you are a experienced, successful athletic administrator, but right now I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new AD on their very first job. But I'm only going to let you put 3 things in their toolbox. What 3 items are going to go in Jackie Randall's new athletic director toolbox?
That is hard. Okay. So I would have to say they definitely need either a cell phone or a walkie-talkie, right? As you've said, communication is huge. And you need to be able to effectively communicate with all stakeholders. And that's not just student athletes and coaches and the community. That's also the maintenance crew. That's also school administration. That's also teachers. So you really have to be proactive and aware that there are many different people that you need to have relationships with and communicate well with in order to be successful. I would also I would put in there a tape measure. Like as an AD, I guess I never realized how much I need a tape measure, between measuring lines outside, measuring windscreens, figuring out how far things, it's very practical, but you need like a literal tool. Like we need a tape measure or a wheel. Like you need to have some way to measure things. And if you don't have that at your leisure, it takes like 2 or 3 steps to get maintenance to lend you so sometimes you just want to be able to go in your drawer, grab a tape measure and go outside and measure the scoreboard that you want to replace, these type of things. And then finally, I would have to say, I would probably some type of subscription or something to, this is something I would say, like a meal prep service. Something what happens with me is when I get busy coaching or being an AD, my self-care and my ways that I take care of myself, so exercising, eating, those sorts of things go down the priority list. And something I've found that's really helped myself as well as my family are some of these like meal planning services. And so, I get 2 or 3 meals. I usually have to make them, but they're all the shopping and items are sent to my house. And so the recipes there, all of the things, it's healthy, it's exposing us to new foods, it's there. So I can still, find time to have a wholesome meal with my family, which is something that's really important to me. And it keeps me, fueled. And so I think that if you can find ways to be able to do that more efficiently, it's essential to being a successful AD.
I'm again, it sounds like I'm a yes man today, but just the tape measure, that's been a unique suggestion. And I probably need that, 4 times a day. How
I
big are those
know.
banners in the gym, or,
Yes,
how
yes.
tall is the doorway? And then the meal thing, you made me think back to when our three kids, and my wife is a career coach, cross country and track, PE teacher, and I was an AD and a football coach. At one point, our three kids were all in high school at the same time. They're all involved in sports. We all have 6 different schedules, and having those prepared meals, was a lifesaver. So, great,
Yeah,
great
I can't
suggestion.
imagine your grocery bills at that time. My goodness.
And again, we had 3 kids in college at the same time. I don't recommend that, but it's all good. It's all good. Jackie, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Absolutely.
Okay. To our listeners, thank you as always for tuning in. Remember, you can see the Zoom recordings of these interviews on the Educational Athletic Director FIAAA YouTube channel. Come back again next time for another episode of the Educational AD.